Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Unique Items. Today we're going to be looking at one of the new unique charms known as the Cold Rupture Grand Charm. In patch 2.5 Public Test Realm, this is not out yet, we have been able to see the new charms that are going to be available in 2.5. Now, these charms only drop from the unique, rare, and champion monsters inside the terror zones, so you will not be able to obtain these any other way. And they offer a very unique effect, as well as a penalty, and we're going to talk about that today, specifically revolving around the Cold Charm. So the Cold Rupture Grand Charm is level 75, and it offers the monster cold immunity is Sundered. So what Sundered means is that Sundered is applied to the monster that you are fighting. It only applies to you, not your mercenaries, not your minions, not your hydras, just you. Basically what it does is it breaks the immunity for you. So a monster who would be cold immune is immediately broken to 95% resistance. Now, 95% resistance is still particularly potent. If you are a cold character, like a Hurricane Druid or a Holy Freeze Paladin or something like that, you will often find that 95% resistance is still practically unbreakable or unkillable, because they're essentially still mitigating 95% of all the damage that you put out. However, this particular item can be used in combination with other effects, like, for instance, negative enemy cold resistance, as well as Cold Mastery, which is the sorceress ability to reduce the resistance of a monster, which functions the same as negative enemy cold resistance. And this will, in effect, allow you to break a monster's resistance further down than it otherwise would. The charm also comes with a pretty hefty negative, though, of negative 75% to cold resistance, which is pretty massive, and quite honestly brings us from negative 17 to negative 92, and is going to have to be directly countered. It's also important to note that if you are trying to counter this, you're going to be looking for specific resistance charms in the form of things like cold resist 11%, as opposed to all resistance is 5, because you're going to be able to get a lot more of a specific resistance this way than you are other ways. There are very specific items also that offer cold resistance over others, and as you go through the game, you will definitely find certain items that offer the resistances that you're looking for, and you may lean more heavily on those items. As far as cold resistance goes, there is a couple items in the game that have massive cold res on them. Black Oak Luna, Medusa's Gaze, just off the top of my head, and it's going to make for a rather ingenious play where you're going to have to figure out how to counter the negative effect. Let's get into the nitty-gritty and of talking about the negative resistance items. I have prepared a character with all of the negative enemy cold resistance items, but before we do that, let's take a look at the Talrasha set, because that is actually not one of them. So the Talrasha set does offer negative enemy lightning and negative enemy fire. However, it does not offer negative enemy cold, so keep that in mind. We go over to our video items 4 here. You're going to see a whole bunch of items that have negative enemy cold resistance on them that you could potentially take advantage of in combination with this charm. The first off on the list is the Wizendraw Long Battle Bow, which is a relatively cheap and inexpensive item to obtain, although the cold resistance does roll between, I think it's like 20 to 35%. But it can go as high as negative 35% enemy cold resistance, and works extremely well in combination with this new charm. The Medusa's Gaze, as I was talking about earlier, has the massive 80% cold resistance on it, and it also offers lower resistance when struck, both of which could be helpful to both take advantage of the new charm and also counter the new charm's negative resistance. Plague also has lower resistance when it's struck, which could certainly be useful. And of course, Infinity is also going to bring down the monster's resistance once the monster's resistance is broken as well. And then on top of that, we also have the Cold Facet, which is negative 5% enemy cold resistance and plus 5% cold skill damage. I believe there is one that I'm missing, which is a rune word. I believe it's called Ice, I want to say. Yes, Rune Word Ice has negative 30% cold skill damage, but it's only in missile weapons. But it would work particularly well, for instance, for a freezing arrow Amazon. Let's talk about the various characters that you could utilize this charm on who would definitely get good benefit for them, right? So, right off the bat, the Cold Sorceress is the first one that springs to mind. That's why I'm on her right now. I'm on the Sorceress. The Cold Sorceress is definitely going to get a massive bump in her, basically, killability, because she's going to be able to kill monsters that she wouldn't have otherwise normally be able to kill. The other important thing here that is it needs to be talked about is that breaking cold resistance has more than an effect of just being able to damage the monsters. Just simply having the resistance broken means that you will be able to freeze the targets where you would not be able to before. And this is important because it offers the Cold Sorceress a survivability within areas that she would not have been able to survive. So in other words, if a Cold Sorceress was running around and she was relying on her crowd control to save her from specific monsters, and she ran across cold immunes, the cold immunes would offer a unique challenge which would basically kill her on many occasions, just simply because those monsters are immune to cold, and she won't be able to crowd control them in any way, shape, or form. On top of that, she won't be able to damage them either. So in general, it does offer some problems for that particular character. Now, with the charm, even if you didn't lean heavily into the negative cold resistance, you would still be able to break the cold resistance, which is certainly going to be nice. This particular character right here, I'm pretty sure is one of the cold immunes, so if we take our charm and put it in the stash, notice it says that she is cold immune. Then when I take the charm out of the stash, it says that she is no longer cold immune. So that's basically how it works. Now, one thing we have also tested is that these charms do in fact break the immunities of the unbreakable immune monsters within the Uber Tristram areas. So if you've ever played around with the evil pit lords that are inside of the Uber Tristram, the Diablo spawns, and they're immune to literally every magical effect, when you were using this particular charm, they are effectively broken, which does mean that certain characters that maybe could never have been able to do Uber Tristram before might actually be able to do Uber Tristram now, which is interesting. Now, who else besides the Cold Sorceress is going to benefit from this particular charm? Well, the Freezing Arrow Amazon is going to get very good benefit from this. The Holy Freeze Paladin is going to get very good benefit from this. The Hurricane Druid will get very good benefit from this. In fact, any build that utilizes cold damage in the extreme will certainly get very good benefit from this particular charm. And really what it does is that it offers the ability to attack immunes when you wouldn't otherwise have had the option. I like it because it doesn't necessarily give you the answer. It opens the door to the answer, and you have to figure out how to reduce the enemy's cold resistance in another way. Now, the Sorceress, of course, has it easy because the Sorceress is basically the only character in the game that actually has a built-in negative cold resistance. But it doesn't necessarily ensure that she's going to do well. She still has to bring up her damage, and it doesn't really increase her damage so much as it just opens the door to actually be able to kill monsters that she would not have been able to ever kill before. The Cold Sorceress has always had it pretty rough because, of course, other characters like Lightning Sorceresses and Fire Sorceresses could utilize things like Infinity or lower resistance to break immunities, but the Cold Sorceress never could. Pretty much all cold immunes are unbreakably immune, no matter what. And this definitely does open the door for cold damage builds to really shine. I don't really feel like there's a lot more to talk about with this particular charm. I do feel like this is probably going to be the most valuable of all of the charms, especially considering that the Cold Sorceress is probably going to be a pretty hot pick this season. Another interesting thing is that this opens the door for Phoenix Strike Assassins to focus on one particular element. In previous builds, if you wanted to play a Phoenix Strike Assassin, you kind of had to focus on everything. You had to put points into the Fire Claw, the Ice Claw, and the Lightning Claw so that your Phoenix Strike would be powerful enough to take on multiple enemies with multiple immunities. And with the new charms, you could theoretically build a Phoenix Strike Assassin that focuses on one particular claw relatively effectively. Whether it be the Fire Claw, the Ice Claw, or the Lightning Claw, any of them could be relatively effective if you built your character properly, utilizing the correct charm. And it's very interesting. Unfortunately, this won't work on the Spirit Wolves, which are cold damage on the Druid Summoning, but it will work on Hurricane, which is certainly very nice. All in all, I think the Cold Rupture Charm probably is the most sexy one of the lot. Really don't think there's much more to cover with this, so I'm going to end it here. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, and if you want to keep watching, be sure to hit that subscribe button.